Absolutely not. Hello, my name is Susan Kraft, and this is Talk Art, a program funded by the Society of Local Artists, SOLA. SOLA meets once a month, usually in the Palo Alto area. You can find out about how to join SOLA by going to our website, svlocalartists.org. Today, we're going to talk with a plein air artist, Will Maller. Some of you may not be familiar with the term plein air. It's French, and that means you have to haul all your stuff outside, somewhere where the light is great and there are interesting subjects to paint. Isn't that right, Will?
That's very true, Susan.
Now, you just came back from a plein air outing.
Yes, we did. We were up at on the Stanislaus River, up in the Sierra Nevadas. It was beautiful.
Oh, so somewhere outside with this great light and great stuff to paint.
Absolutely.
But I can't imagine hauling all my stuff, all my painting gear and my canvas and an easel down the rocky area and the sand and into the what? How do you handle all that stuff?
Well, we have there's a number of easels that are made for plein air painting these days. Mine happens to be a little older wooden version, and but it still accommodates all my brushes, all the chemicals, including the paints and some rags and brushes, all contained in one unit.
So it's like a suitcase almost.
Absolutely.
A suitcase
You carry it much
easel.
like a suitcase easel, right? And then it unfolds and the legs come out almost spider-like, and
okay.
It works quite well and functions quite well.
Okay. And so what about the bugs and the dirt and the mist from the river and?
That's all part of the plein air painting experience, and a little sand and a few bugs on a painting certainly aren't going to hurt it, and isn't anything that can't be corrected if it's distracting once you get back into the studio.
Well, you know what? There's a whole school that started. There's one particular school that started in Mexico, central Mexico, that actually purposely added sand to the paint, and now it's really that's part of what they do. It's really thick sand and whatever else they can find, and they carve into it. So.
Right.
So do you actually use sand to maybe make your rocks more gritty, or?
I don't. I think many times, particularly on the coast, and I do enjoy Davenport Beach, and occasionally you'll catch the wind in a windstorm on Davenport Beach will blow sand into your painting. And
we've got sand dunes.
Right. I just ignore it and just move on, and it is what it is.
I mean, yeah. Okay.
I'm not looking for a heavy impasto of material, but
you can.
I'm not going to be distracted with a little of it either.
Makes it authentic.
Absolutely.
Okay. So plein air, the reason why I wanted to talk to you about, and the reason why I invited you back again to talk about this, because plein air painting has become a really, really hot thing in the art market and with artists. It's booming.
Very
it's been
much
around
so.
for about 100 years?
At least.
About 75 years.
75 to 100, yeah.
It started, of course, in Europe, and I think in England, and then in France, and then came here. And then because we had some California artists that went there.
Yeah.
And the reason why these three places that they were big in and still here, because we have great places to look at and great light, and we get to paint all year round.
Absolutely.
It's California.
Absolutely.
So this is where plein air is becoming big again. It's here.
Bet. Yeah.
Okay, and you're at the center of it. You are at the center of it.
But thank you.
Well, you are. So now what I want to do is talk to you about what's happening with you today in your plein air art life.
Today, I am fortunate to have 3 pieces in the History Museum of San Jose, one of which was first place winner.
And I think that Marty is going to show us some pieces up on the TV for our studio audience and for people at home. Here we go. We've got Morning Shadows at Villa Montalvo.
That's the
Tell us
first
about
place
this.
piece.
It's a first place piece. This is at the History Museum in San Jose.
Museum in San Jose.
And where is that?
That is located at Kelly Park in South San Jose, or adjacent to it. And it's part of the History Park. They have a gallery and a museum inside the confines of Kelly Park that's open to the public.
How perfect to be in the History Museum. How perfect, because this is, I think that, like I said, this is making a resurgent, and it's real big, and it's such a historical part of the modern art, of being modern from the 1850s on. I consider that whole thing as being pretty modern, because it was removed our constraints from what had been going on for a long time.
Sure.
So we've got another piece. Marty, can you bring up the second piece? Here we go. Los Alamitos Creek at South San Jose, and that's where you painted it. And that piece also won an award, correct?
That was juried into the show at the History Museum in San Jose, and that was painted with the Los Gatos Art Association group.
Oh.
That meets every Monday morning.
Los Gatos.
Los Gatos Art
Okay.
Association group. We'll meet every Monday morning, and was painted 6 or 7 months ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. Well, the piece is now off of the TV, but I do want to. We have, just so you know, we do have 4 more of your pieces.
Oh, wow.
That have won awards and have been lauded in the past as well. So tell me about now Los Gatos. So you belong to two plein air
organizations,
art
right.
associations in the Bay Area, because you live in the Central Bay Area.
Yes.
And one is in Los Altos, and one is in Los Gatos. Okay.
Right.
All right. And then both of these organizations, you go many places to paint.
Exactly.
From North Bay to down to Monterey,
As
Carmel
far as
area.
Monterey,
Okay.
Carmel, exactly.
So I'm going to ask Marty to bring up some more pieces. We have some award-winning pieces. We've got 4 pieces that have won awards and prizes. So the first one here, I would like you to tell me about Gold Country Sundown. Now it's 16 by 20
16 by 20.
inches. It's in oil. And Gold Country, obviously, you painted this somewhere in the foothills of the Sierras.
That was a scene that was started again on the Stanislaus River in the Sierra Nevada. It was juried into the Napa Plein Air show in 2006. In fact, was winner of People's Choice first place.
Wow, that's great.
Very fortunate to have that.
That's huge. That's huge. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So, what was I going to ask you about this piece? One other thing I wanted to ask you about that piece. So you got a really nice award for it. It was in St. Stanislaus River again.
Yes.
And it's small, 16 by 20. And of course it makes sense because you're carrying things out and back, and you've got a wet oil painting you're bringing back. That's got to be difficult.
Exactly. That's very difficult if you're going to get much larger than that, simply because you need to be able to capture the light within an 1.5 to 2 hour period of time. At that point, your light changes, your shadows change, and that indeed changes the character of the color.
And unless you're painting with 3- and 2-inch brushes,
exactly,
which of course is going to be, have a special character. But yeah. We've got, Marty, can you bring up the next one, please? We've got, here's some beautiful leaves. This is a watercolor piece, I believe. Yes.
That is watercolor,
and it's Stevens Creek Afternoon. And you did watercolor plein air? Or this is just one of the, this is plein air, okay. And it's also one of the pieces that you won an award and prize for. So tell me about what you won with this piece.
Well, this one was juried into the 29th Southwest Watercolor Association show this last year. Prior to that, it was an award winner with the with the Santa Clara Valley Watercolor Association. So
Santa Clara Valley. Okay, again, it's in the area where you live.
Local area, right?
Bay Area. Okay, San Francisco Bay Area. In case people that are not here in the Bay Area know where I'm talking about. So, what award did you win?
With this particular piece was in the Southwest
SWA. And you won second?
Watercolor Association.
This was
an honorable mention.
Honorable mention. Okay. All right. And then there's the third one. Can we bring that one up? Okay. Now this is an abstract of a tree, and it's called Blue Tree.
That's Blue Tree.
This is mixed media.
Right.
And that's at Coe Park.
Right. The inspiration for that one was a late afternoon in Coe Park, and we were working with watercolor at the time and getting very frustrated. And it was late in the afternoon, and with some used a very broad brush and tried to keep it in almost monochromatic colors, then add colored accents to it, and wasn't happy at the time. When I got it home in the studio, I felt a little better about it.
Well, when did you? Cause you had this in the gallery for a while, in my gallery for a while. So I know this is one of the pieces you put tissue paper in. You did really a lot of different things to it.
Yeah, this one included some gel and a little bit of the tissue paper work with it, but most of it was like a watercolor medium gel.
So now both the last one with the leaves and this one, clearly you did more work in the studio because you can't do that much outside.
Exactly.
So that's part of what you talked about, finishing up in the studio.
Exactly.
So did you take snapshots?
I do do location snapshots.
You do not.
The whole process starts with a sketch, and it's a very small 4-value black and white charcoal sketch.
Oh,
And
okay.
just
All this in 2 hours. So you sketch and then you
Absolutely.
paint and you bring it home.
Absolutely.
2 hours. 2 hours? You
2
limit yourself
hours.
2 hours.
Absolutely.
I've done figure painting in 3 hours. 2 hours. Okay. All right. There's one
well.
more. I don't want to belabor this too much. We got
No.
another fourth one. Here we go.
Yeah.
This is the after the storm, and which is also known as after the rain. 16 by 16 oil, which is like the first one. So a
Right.
small one in oil. Nice thick wet oil piece that you bring home after you bring everything out
Right.
there, and you don't. So you've got to have a special thing that you carry it home with. Is that some? Do you have some sort of special clamping thing that you can
No,
hold
I
on?
have a situation on my easel whereby if you expand the easel and then you take the piece out, the holders, there's a gap in the back, so if you just
Oh,
turn the piece
okay.
around,
A special
clamp
easel
it
again. Okay.
inside so it allows you to transport it.
All right, so it's my inexperience with plein air. Actually, I'll tell
well.
you something. I bought one of these plein air.
Julian easels?
I guess it's an really old-fashioned kind, and I had it at my home studio, but it had such a big footprint. And I suppose it's good when you're out in a rocky area because it
Right.
gives you a lot of room to have
Exactly.
your, and it took up too much room, and I was tripping over it, and the dogs were tripping over it, and I got rid of it. Actually, I sold it on eBay or Craigslist or something. So I know a little bit about it, and when
Right.
you're telling me these things, I'm remembering what it did for
Right.
me.
Well,
I could have.
This particular piece was actually
The one that
from
was up. Okay.
was Putney, Vermont.
Putney, Vermont.
Putney, Vermont is
Oh,
where that piece was
you went
painted.
all the way. That's right, because
Yeah.
you were at a class there.
Exactly. There were,
And
well,
this
it
is
was
where-
a painting. It was a painting workshop with Albert Handel, and then we had the weekend to work with Richard Schmidt.
And who are these people?
Richard Schmidt's one of the leading painters in America today, and Albert is one of the leading plein air as well as one of the leading pastel artists.
And they recognized you as having a really good
Yeah,
touch in
I was-
plein air with water flowing, which is
Exactly.
why you mean maybe not.
I was
why, but-
fortunate to get that recognition, and in fact, that's the painting that was the painting of the week when we were going through that.
Yeah, and
painting
that actually kind
exercise.
of spawned off your plein air painting with water.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
That was
you've
one
done
of the
some great
key
work,
paintings,
which is
yeah.
we're surrounded by these.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk to you about the history of plein air. Speaking of, so we talked about these two guys.
Sure.
And there's a few people here. There's the Guy Rose who studied with
Mm-hmm.
Monet, and he's the guy, right? Guy Rose. He's the artist who lived here in California
Right.
in the late when was he here? It was in the early 1900s?
Early 1900s, yeah. He's one
And
of
he
the
was
key
here.
individuals in California plein air painting, which started to develop after the railroads moved west.
Oh, yeah, that would be
Yeah.
very helpful to just hop on a
Absolutely.
railroad.
In fact, that's how you got a free
Car,
ticket,
yeah.
is if you were to paint a painting for the railroads, they would give you free passage. Then they had the painting
Nice.
to put in their brochures and advertise to people to take the train and come west.
So here's a big switch from then and now.
Yeah,
Now you get a free
absolutely.
ride on the train if it's a save the air day because it's too smoggy. So, now if we have pollution, you get to ride for free.
Right.
Back then, you could ride for free if you're going to paint a painting for 'em.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, whatever. Oh, anyway, so he went to France and he studied with Monet.
That's true.
And because by the time he came along and was doing this, the Impressionists had really become a big deal. And the Impressionists were, if I remember correctly, had been inspired by the Realists, and the Realists were the first plein air painters, right?
That's true. They were able to go into the fields, and I think there were two developments that period of time that enabled this. One was they were able to grind oil paint and then place it into tubes that were movable, that you could literally
Nice.
take
Yeah.
the
Can you
tubes of
imagine
paint
when you
with
had
you.
to just have this and that was it? You were
But
stuck in your
that's
studio.
exactly right. Yeah, and that was one of the biggest advantages. I think the other one was the camera. Camera took a lot of the work away from the studio artists. And now all of a sudden they're looking for a venue and they're looking for new opportunities, so they took their new tubes of paint and packaged them in their easels and get all dressed up, and they would put on their very good Sunday best and go out into the fields.
This was kind of advertising too,
This-
right?
Absolutely.
Like, I'm going out
Yeah.
there with my stuff, take a look at me.
Yeah.
What's
So
that
that's
guy
the
doing?
point.
What does
Yeah.
he have all that stuff? So I wonder if people would actually come around and see what they did because of
Hopefully, and hopefully they would perhaps even purchase a painting.
that. By watching them.
By watching them, yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty cool to
Yeah.
watch somebody paint when you've never seen
Yeah.
that kind of thing. It's got to be like magic.
It gave a whole new, fresh approach to oil painting and was an absolute, almost counterculture to the very, very tight, almost historical paintings and salon paintings that were very big at that time.
Oh, okay, right. There was this huge shift.
Huge shift.
And that was the first shift, was the realists and these plein air painters, the early plein air
Exactly.
painters. And the next shift, which most people know about the Impressionists, because
Right.
they had most of them had a very interesting path to get to where they were. There's movies about them because of their personalities
Very
and the
much so.
conflicts and how they just, stuck their nose up and their thumbs up
Right.
and whatever other appendages
Yeah.
up at the salons,
Right.
and they did their own thing. They
Exactly.
actually started their own studios and,
And
their own shows.
their initial work was not well received.
Absolutely not.
There was many stories told in addition to the Van Gogh story.
Now, so the plein air painters, the first ones, when in France they went out and painted the peasants in the
Right.
fields. In England, this fellow, who was the first one? Rose? Was it Rose?
Guy Rose?
Guy Rose. No, Guy Rose from here. Who's
Guy
the
is
one
from here.
now I'm getting mixed up my people. I have to read a little bit more here. I've got
There
some
was a
really,
number.
we've got. My director has given me all sorts of stuff to read here, on camera too. So, who's the fellow in England? I've got him in here somewhere.
You're thinking of Turner or John Constable?
John Constable. So
Constable.
he was the first one in England, and
He
he
was
went out
early.
and painted.
He was
Just interesting
basically painting the
gardens
fields,
and
painting
field-
gardens, painting everyday subject matter.
But in
very-
France, they were painting the peasants.
Exactly.
And one of my favorite paintings from that era is the Gleaners.
Yes.
And I didn't even know what Gleaners were until I studied that painting
Painting,
and
right.
realized they were the people that would go back after the harvesters and they would pick the seeds that had fallen.
Exactly. Glean the ground, clean the
that's-
land of the
And that's what a
fallen
gleaner
seed.
was,
yeah.
yeah. So we have Gleaners now. They just go through your trash and pick out the bottles for 5 cents a piece. Same thing. Same idea.
That's
you're
true.
gonna throw that away? It's worth money, man.
That's true.
Yeah. So it's a lot of work, but you get
Right,
something out of it.
exactly.
So, if somebody today painted today's Gleaners, would 150 years from now, would people find that romantic and beautiful?
I don't know. I think there's an awful lot of that kind of subject matter and questions that are being asked today. And I think you look back 40 or 50 years ago to the 1960s, and who would say that pop art by Rauschenberg and some of those people at that period of time would be viewed as art today? And I'd have to say that you could go through not only Rauschenberg, but Jasper Johns and Robert Indiana, and of course Andy Warhol. They've certainly manufactured their own culture and their own pop art era, and their work is now bringing millions on the
Well, I'm glad you brought
market.
that up, because just like many people back then, some of that work is being devalued because it's falling apart. Poor Jackson.
That's true.
His work is just coming off the canvas. What are you going to do with a $30 million or $3 million piece? Well, here we go. We've got Andy Warhol. Now, Andy Warhol.
There you go.
I believe that Andy Warhol's work is not art. It's advertising. He took popular things already. Campbell's Soup Can, Marilyn Monroe. He took advertising
common everyday
style of presenting work.
common everyday subjects
Right.
presented in an interesting and artistic
So,
fashion.
artistic? You think that's artistic?
Absolutely.
I don't believe it.
In fact, Andy Warhol, for an instance, was a shoe illustrator for Gimbels in Philadelphia as a freelancer. And you take his cross sections and his
He did
his
shoes.
grid,
He did shoes in a grid.
and he would lay his shoes out in that grid. He just simply replaced the shoes with Marilyn Monroe
He did
and
shoes
in different.
too in the fine art
Absolutely.
industry. Okay,
Right.
so now I'm actually confused as to why you think he's good when you know this about him, right?
Of course.
And all right, so and then he is in the middle of the pop art.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure why he caught on and why he stayed on, but every single museum in the country I've ever been into has at least one, if not 10, Andy Warhols in their collections. And I think it's because he did so many, right?
True.
And it was easy because he had a crew of people doing it for him.
Well, okay, he developed an art form at that time that was going through an evolution. It was called serigraphy, which is basically an art form based with a silk screen, a handmade silk screen, which means is basically a print medium or a print style in which you have an original and you can come in with 4
This
or
is
5 or
print
6
also.
or 200.
This is new. This is a new
200
style.
different-
I wouldn't call
different
this
images.
art. I call this a magazine cover.
That is a
It's
magazine
beautiful,
cover.
but I don't consider it to be art. Now,
It's
I have.
cover art. If you
All
were
right. If
Get
I
the
were to
original.
frame that, Is it going to be worth something? So
Probably.
I've got
50 years from now.
all right, so now I need to read something to you from, here it is. I've got all this stuff here, and I don't, not this,
Really?
not this. No, not this. Okay, here. Where is it? I found one in here that I think is just, here it is. By Craig Stevens, a journalist, right, in England. All right. People liked them, and this is the pop art. And there's a large part of the collecting population that was simply tired of looking at all that modern crap that wasn't just shtick, craft, talentless blobs of nothing. There was a hunger for reality and its shocking normalcy, and he's talking about why plein air art is becoming popular today, because they're sick of that schlock.
That could very well be, but that schlock, you know,
love it.
your reference to the schlock goes back 40 to 50 years. What's going on in plein air now is another generation,
Yeah, we can have
40 years diverse.
We can have a whole show on this, because what I have marked in here is we've got other people that are doing things like this. Can you get this on the camera here? Where do we have a camera? Camera 1, take a look at this. See, oh, let me, there you go. See this? Look at that. Now that's art, that's in art news. Look at this guy. He's with a chain on, he's naked, and he's banging his head. That is exactly where modern pop art has gone today, where people are devaluing themselves, they're hurting themselves,
right,
and they're doing weird sexual acts.
Exactly, but that's not part of the 60s pop art culture.
But that's what it grew into.
That may be, but because it grew into doesn't mean that
all right. What I'd like you to do is let's go back to plein air.
Okay.
Because that's what the show is really about. You have a beautiful piece of plein air painting over here in your virtual studio, and I think you're going to show us how
in terms of plein air, I do have a piece that we did start initially, and it's subject matter from Stanislaus River, and it's right over here. I'll be more than happy to join you in the studio.
Thank you. I'd love to have you do that. Thank you. Beautiful. Okay, so now we're going to just take a quick look at some of your earlier pieces that we already saw that were award winners. While you take a look at while you get ready for in your virtual studio, which is, you know, I mean, in virtual studio, this is, you actually have your studio 30 miles away from here, so it's going to take a little bit of time to get there. While we do this little slideshow. Okay, there you are, the magic of TV.
Well, what we have here is something that was started, again, subject matter from Stanislaus. And again, we'll start a project like this with a strong concentration in isolating the darks and the lights. The lights will sell your painting, but it is dependent entirely, I believe, on how the darks accentuate it and how the darks tie together. And what we've done here, we've captured a great deal of the movement of the rocks, or the feeling of the rocks, and it's the heart and the crispness of it, and try to counter that with the with the flowing action of the water and where it's going.
So what can you do for us today? Well, how can you make that better? My God,
we've
it's
still
so beautiful.
got some of this. No, we've got.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to start back here and set this area deeper into the dark, because this is probably, I'm going to put in some blue back here. I added a tick of the lighter blue here. I'm going to come down with almost like an inner woods dark here. And if we've got this kind of a feeling with it, we're going to want to set some trees or tree shapes involved with this. And with that's going to be a bit of this. We'll probably picture something in this fashion and maybe going up, perhaps another here, strong here. And I believe as we come over here, something to lead in here. With that, we'll put in if we've got some light-struck shapes to this, we'll give it some definition as we come through here in this fashion, and most of this stuff can be done fairly quickly.
Nice, look at this,
and
look
come
at
through
this. You're growing a forest right before our eyes.
And come back in and drop in some some of these branches. Just by and large, what you're looking for in plein air primarily is you're painting the pattern and giving it a hint of the reality. And
It's not exact. It's not detailed.
With some of that it's exactly right. You wanna just.
So you don't want to take your realist but impressionist view and make it picture perfect. You just want to add a little more detail that you couldn't do in the 2 hours.
Not at all. You're looking at
boy, oh boy.
something.
So after this, we're going to you know what this reminds me, Will, is when I do figure painting. I think I brought this up earlier. That figure painting, you only have, well, I have 3 hours in my figure painting class once a week. And in 3 hours, I paint probably anywhere between 6 and a dozen paintings.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I think with that, is what I was referring to, just blocking it in.
Uh-huh, very good, very good. So now you do figure painting as well, don't you? In fact, you've got one here behind you. I don't know if anybody has seen it besides me standing right here. But you've got a nice little, this one, you weren't in my class with this one, so you have done some work with me.
That is true. I don't think I was within the last class that you were in when we did this exercise. It was a figure exercise in an environment where the model is in constant motion, along with changing light patterns and changing sound patterns.
Which isn't the normal way of doing figure painting.
Not
but
at
I
all.
think maybe this plein air is influencing figure drawing because things are changing all the time.
Very much so.
It keeps you really on top, which is you know what's really good for is if anybody out there, you guys, anybody in the audience, any of our artists out there, or anybody on TV, if you are blocked, either go plein air painting or do figure drawing because you cannot be blocked or you're just going to stand there like a block yourself. And so you use a way to break through.
Exactly.
So with that,
I strongly believe that one of the ways to work through an artist's block of fashion is to get into the plein air painting, because you're working on a piece a shorter period of time, and in a particular set period of time, you'll work through more pieces. Working through more pieces will bring it to the end.
And with that, it's a perfect way to finish up this time.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for coming to Talk Art tonight, Will.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you all for coming.